The fading wolf cub survived because a human doctor knew forgotten secrets. The wind howled through the frozen pines of the northern wilds, carrying a scent of fear and blood. Snow had fallen for 3 days without stopping, thick enough to cover the fresh tracks of the pack that called this forest home. At the heart of their territory, the alpha's den lay hidden beneath a tangle of roots and ice-covered boulders. Inside, the air was thick with tension. A small cub, barely a few weeks old, it shivered violently in the corner. Its breathing was shallow, the skin pale beneath a faint coat of fur. The pack's leader, every day a massive silver wolf named Kaler, paced anxiously, ears flat against his skull, teeth occasionally flashing in frustration. The cub's mother, Lyra, nuzzled him gently, her eyes wide and frightened. "He's fading, Kaler," she whispered in low, mournful tones. "I can feel it, he's too weak." Kaler growled, a low rumble that vibrated through the den. Wolves are strong, resourceful, but this was beyond anything they had faced. The cub had contracted a sickness no wolf in the territory had ever survived. Their usual remedies, herbs, roots, careful grooming, and warmth, were failing. From the shadows of the den entrance, a figure watched, half hidden by snow and darkness. Humans rarely ventured into these lands. Those who did often perished, underestimating the harshness of the wilds or the intelligence of the wolves. But this human was different. Her movements were deliberate, careful, respectful. Dr. Elara Miles, human medic and healer of rare repute, crouched on the edge of the clearing, her breath forming clouds in the freezing air. She had traveled hundreds of miles on foot and sled, following the trail the pack had unwittingly left. Her knowledge of ancient medicines, passed down through generations of humans who had lived alongside wolves and other wild creatures, was what brought her here today. She carried no weapons. Her only tools were pouches of herbs, roots, and salves carefully harvested and preserved. Every step was calculated. She could sense the tension of the wolves, their wariness of her presence. Wolves were not easily fooled. Trust was earned, never demanded. Kaler's ears pricked at the sound of her soft steps. He approached cautiously, a growl rumbling in his chest. Elara froze, letting him gauge her intent. She had expected resistance. She had studied wolf behavior for years and knew that approaching the alpha too quickly could result in disaster. "I'm not here to harm your cub," she whispered, letting her voice carry gently through the snow. "I can help him." Kaler stopped. His nose twitched, nostrils flaring as he took in her scent. It was foreign yet calm, human, dangerous in a strange way, but not hostile. His silver eyes met hers, measuring, judging, assessing. Then, with a slow exhale, he nodded, just enough for her to know she had permission. Elara stepped into the clearing, the snow crunching softly beneath her boots. She approached the den with care, setting down her pouches and tools. "I need space, and I need your trust," she said. "I can't help otherwise." Lyra stirred beside the cub, growling softly in warning. Elara moved slowly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Kaler circled, observing, until he seemed satisfied. He signaled the other wolves to retreat a few meters, leaving her access to the cub. The sight of the cub made Elara's heart tighten. He was barely alive, ribs faintly visible under his thin fur, eyes barely open. The illness was severe, a rare viral infection that humans had records of in an ancient text but had long disappeared from common knowledge. Only a combination of cold, resistant herbs and precise herbal elixirs could hope to stabilize him. She knelt beside the cub and murmured softly, beginning the delicate process of cleaning frostbitten patches of skin and applying salves. The wolves watched silently, tense but silent. Every so often, the cub shivered violently, tiny whimpers escaping his throat. Elara murmured encouragement, every day rubbing warmth into his body and whispering stories of survival and courage. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, howling through the forest, but inside the den time slowed. Elara worked tirelessly, boiling roots over a small, contained fire, creating infusions and balms that carried the scent of life itself. Kayla's eyes never left her hands, the way she applied treatment to the tiny creature. He growled softly whenever she faltered or hesitated. She had no experience treating wolves directly. Her knowledge came from human history, but instinct guided her, and the ancient texts she had studied whispered solutions into her mind. By late afternoon, the cub's breathing began to steady, his shivering less severe, a faint warmth returned to his fur. Lyra nudged him gently, surprised by the improvement. Kaler exhaled, a long that carried both relief and cautious hope. "You see," Elara said softly. "He's strong. He's a fighter. He just needed help." The wolves circled closer now, scenting her cautiously, accepting her presence as one of healing. Kaler lowered himself beside the cub, his massive frame forming a protective barrier around her as she worked. Night fell, but the storm began to abate. Stars appeared above the canopy, glimmering through the gaps in the clouds. Elara knew she couldn't stay forever. Humans were not meant to survive the deep northern wilds for long without proper shelter. But the bond she had formed with these wolves, the trust she had earned, felt timeless. "Remember," she whispered to Kaler, "your cub is strong. You'll protect him, and he'll survive. You don't need me forever, just for now." Kaler's silver eyes gleamed in the firelight. Though he could not speak, his stance, his careful nuzzles toward the cub spoke volumes: gratitude, respect, recognition. Before leaving, Elara gathered her remaining herbs, careful not to disrupt the den's environment. She gave one last look at the cub, now lying quietly, his chest rising and falling steadily, his eyes half open and bright. She disappeared into the snowy night, leaving only faint footprints and the lingering scent of healing herbs behind. The pack would remember her, not as a predator, not as an invader, but as a human who had walked among them, defied their caution every day, and saved the life of their future leader. In the days that followed, the cub thrived. Kaler led the pack with renewed strength. Lyra's gaze softened as she nursed him, and the other wolves grew even more united. Somewhere in the forests, the wind seemed to carry a whisper of gratitude. A human healer, brave enough to venture into the wild, who had brought ancient medicine and hope when all seemed lost. And in the shadows, Elara watched from afar, smiling. Humans are fragile, but their courage, their ingenuity, that could change the world, even for creatures who seemed stronger, faster, and wilder. Because sometimes, survival doesn't come from strength alone. Sometimes it comes from a human heart that remembers the old ways, the forgotten secrets, and the courage to step into a world not their own. The cub survived, the pack thrived. And the human, she became a legend whispered among the howling winds of the northern wilds.